I have no balls on fire, but I don't need it. Welcome to Motorbike Mondays, episode 13. This is Evan from Race Tech Electric.
Brady from Seaweed and Gravel.
And Jared from Seaweed and Gravel.
Okay, so tonight we are going to start our series on carburetors. We're going to start tonight talking about how carburetors work and giving you some info about that.
I like that. A series?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
We're stepping it up.
Series, right?
It's a two-part series.
It's going to be 2 parts, so it's a series. It makes it sound more important that way.
Yeah, it does.
Like we have it all planned out in detail, so
I like it.
It's part of a series. So let's talk about some news first. We just did an interview with
themanual.com.
One of their editors, their features editor, I think, a guy named Andrew. Cool guy. Got in contact with us last week and wanted to do an interview for a feature on the website. So he wrote up some questions and we answered those questions, and it turned into a pretty cool interview.
Yeah.
You can check it out on the website. I've got part of it posted and then a link to their site. It's on motorbikemondays.com. So check that out, and if you heard the interview and found out or read the interview and found out about us from there, let us know. That'd be awesome.
And welcome.
Yeah,
that
I know.
Too.
I checked, and there's definitely traffic coming to our website from there. So some people definitely heard about us from there, I think. So that's awesome. It was pretty cool. It was fun to do.
Yeah, and Andrew, if you're listening, thank you. That was a fun time.
Yeah,
fun typing.
Yeah.
Was it just me, or I thought that was going to be like 15 minutes?
Yeah, it took a while.
It took me like 2 hours to write.
To write it?
Answer
the
questions.
It took me a good half hour at least.
Yeah, it took a while for me as well.
Half hour. It took me literally it took me 2 hours.
There was only like 8 questions.
I was serious about it, man. I took this very seriously.
Okay, maybe it took a little longer than half an hour. I don't know. Because
it was also late at night, and
yeah.
I was ready to go to sleep.
Right, I did it at about
some of my
midnight.
answers probably reflected that.
I went back, I wrote it at night, and then I went back and read them the next morning, and I changed
didn't make sense.
Some of them. No, some of them were really stupid. Well, then it's like listening to. I rarely go back and listen to the podcast because of the things I say are so dumb, and when you listen to it, it just makes you cringe.
It's like, why did I say that?
And writing answers to an interviewer is the same way. Like when I write it and I finish, I'm like, oh, I sound so cool. This is going to be rad. And then I read it the next day, and I'm like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I didn't have that opportunity because I emailed it to you right when I was finished.
That's okay. I edited some of your answers for you.
Good. That's why I sounded so dumb.
Oh no, you. Anyways, it was a good interview.
Yeah, it was cool.
It made us sound cooler than we are, which I like. That was good.
No, it's a cool website too. I've been on there a few times previously. I've ran into it and kind of gotten lost for a couple hours in it, but definitely check it out. It's kind of a essential guide for men. A lot of
hence the manual.
The manual.
Oh, I never put that together.
Yeah, I just did right now. I don't even know if that's what they're going for, but
it's probably not.
No, they put man in the name for a reason.
Well, they didn't make up the word manual.
No, but like if you were going to start a site about dudes, you would probably put man in the name, right?
No.
Yeah, I get both sides.
I'm just
all right.
There's
So
no man in GQ.
If you look it. They capitalized man in the title.
Yeah, but GQ stands for
something like
Gentleman Quarterly.
Quarters, yeah. Yeah, Gentleman
yeah,
Quarterly.
So see, even they put man in the title.
Yeah, but that's not the title. Their business cards say GQ, not Gentleman's Quarter.
But it stands for gentleman. It's got man literally in the title.
I'm right.
It's not just a man, it's a gentle man.
I'm right.
Which is that your favorite kind?
You know, on Saturdays.
Okay, Andrew, we need you to clear this up. So we've got a really important issue. I was emailing with Andrew, and I invited him on the podcast, so hopefully he'll do one with us soon.
That'd be cool.
He sounded up for it. He's got some cool bikes. He said he he's got a Triumph. What's it called? Like a T120 or something? Isn't that a Triumph model?
Yeah,
I think that's what he
said.
said.
T140.
He's got one of those, and then he's got an old. He's got like an XT 600 or something that sounded like some shop was trying to rip him off on it. It sounded like an interesting story. And then a Ninja 250 that he said he beats the crap out of him, and it's an awesome bike.
That's fun. I've actually recently wanted to think about doing the build out of
A Ninja?
like a
They're
250.
They're kind of cool.
I think they're dumb.
No, they're pretty rad for a 250. We sell
like the new ones.
Yeah,
I just think
done.
they're
My
funny
friend's
to me.
my friend's girlfriend has one of those, so
I wouldn't mind having one. They're really fun.
Yeah.
We have a kit that we put together a bunch of parts from Koso that makes the gauges, like speedometers and stuff. And they have a plug and play kit that lets you run one of their big like multi-function tacks. They look a lot like the gauge readout on like a new GSXR. They're kind of cool. They got a big analog tack and then a digital screen. And
I have seen those.
It's a plug and play kit with a mounting board, so you can actually mount their entire unit, and it replaces the whole gauge cluster, the stock like ridiculous 80s style analog gauge cluster on a Ninja 250. So I've had a couple of them in here to install them, and then I've rode them around, and they're actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I think they'd be a really cool build. I mean, something new.
It would be an interesting
just kind of
bike
change it up and
to do
a little bit. And it's new, so it's reliable.
Yeah, well, they haven't changed those things in years. That bike is like, they just changed the body style recently. Oh, I don't know, because they make a 300 now. Have you seen that? They changed I don't even know if they make the 250 anymore. They changed it to a 300, and it's a new bike. It's very similar, but it's a new bike. But the older ones, the Ninja 250 was the same for like 20 years or something. They're like they didn't change a thing. They're like the KLRs. They didn't change them for like 20 years. Anyways, okay, so what were we talking about? Anyways, I'll be in touch with Andrew, and hopefully we'll get him on the podcast. He said he didn't have a ton of technical knowledge about bikes, but I said, come on and BS with us. He sounds like a cool guy, so I think it'd be fun. But anyways, so check out the interview at the manual, or check out our website for part of it, and I'll link to it. Anyways, let's talk about what's in the shop. Jared?
What's in the shop?
Oh, shit.
Are you just calling someone else?
Hey, JD, I'll call you back in just a minute.
What's your
Evan's
problem,
just
man?
answering the phone
I answered it.
and putting on speakerphone.
No, that's my buddy JD, and he's deaf too, so it's like really hard to talk to him on the phone. So he probably
Does he have to do like the type to?
No, he can hear okay, but it's kind of hard to talk on the phone because he doesn't hear very well. So we usually text message. I didn't know I answered that. I'll cut that out. All right. Anyways,
No, you won't.
so let's talk about what we got going on in the shop. When do you guys want to start?
I think Jared was almost there.
I haven't been to the shop in like 2 weeks, and then I went today, and I'm just buttoning up everything on the 550 so we can put it on a truck and send it to Colorado. Everything's fine except I'm trying to dial in the Trail Tech Vapor kit that I got for it.
Or it's not a kit.
Well, it's just
it's speedometer.
Yeah, it's a Speedo tack, and I got the Speedo and everything to work, but the tack is just
it's just run all over the place.
Yeah, it's kicking my ass. So that's it. But hopefully I'll have that done in the next couple of days. I'm waiting on a call from Trail Tech, and then I can start the next build, which would be another 550. Yeah, that's it. That's what I got.
Let's see. I haven't been spending a lot of time at the shop lately. I've been doing a lot of testing on the current 550 that I finished, and kind of getting out the bugs and finding out what needs to be fixed, if anything. There was an oil leak that I tracked down to the shift shaft seal, and also
Oil pump.
the
or
oil
whatever?
pump. The inlet and outlet little
Wait,
O-rings.
on the one you just finished?
Yeah.
It-
We
the
did a
shift
test
shaft
ride.
Started leaking.
Well, I wasn't sure where it was.
Oh, okay.
And
The one you just delivered, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's fixed now. I mean,
Oh, got it.
So there's a little lesson. I've never really had, surprisingly, an issue with those before. And so just now, or at least now for me, it's a little check mark to, or bullet point to check that on every build now. And
How hard is
if
that
not,
to replace?
It's not too bad at all.
Can you do? Can you get the seal out easily?
Yeah,
without
I mean, you
taking
can do it
anything
with
else
a basic flathead screwdriver.
Oh,
You just have to kind of get in there and dig it out. Just you want to be wary not to score anything.
right.
But yeah, and then the new one just slides right on and just kind of
Pops in.
Yeah, and just press it in with a large socket that fits
got it.
around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just from now on, I'm just gonna just have a note just to replace that, good or bad, just so I don't have to run into this again. Yeah, we delivered the bike to the customer yesterday or last night, and so he was pretty pumped to
Woo!
finally get it. And we got back word, or he gave us word this morning, saying that it rides like a Ferrari.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, and that's
Is that what he said?
Yeah,
It rides like a Ferrari.
something of the sorts.
Some
Do you
sports car
normally
rides like a
deliver
Lambo.
them if they're in San Diego?
Surprisingly, this is my first client that actually is in San Diego.
I thought I was kind of surprised you guys delivered it.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, that's cool. I just didn't.
Yeah, no, I
figured
mean
you would've
it
kinda
wasn't.
done
It was a half hour at most
Yeah.
drive down. So,
Well, he's in North Park. He should have just given me the bike. I could have rode it around for 2 or 3 days and then
yeah,
dropped it off eventually.
I'm sure I could have done that, but I chose wisely.
But I didn't.
So, yeah, full attention is back on the XS 750. Getting that all squared away.
That's gonna be cool. I can't wait. To see
Yeah,
what
so
happens
it's
with
kind
that.
of. I might have mentioned it before, but trying to build two bikes at the same time by yourself is not the wisest idea. It doesn't necessarily shave time, but adds more frustration and time. So noted again. If I'm going to do two builds, it will be with extra help. Yeah, that's what's going on in my shop.
Well, I've got a lot going on in my shop. Let's see. I picked up a couple bikes that are for sale that I did a little bit of work on. I might have talked about them last time. I don't remember. I
think you talked about 2 of the 3.
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned it. I was doing some work on 85 Honda Interceptor 500, and that thing's ready to roll and is for sale, and it's an awesome bike. So if you're looking for one, let me know. And I had a 71 CL 350 Scrambler. That's a cool little bike and needed a starter clutch, so I got that all done and rode it around today. And then we found out that it's only running on one cylinder, so
It's running great. On
it runs really awesome on the left cylinder though, but the right one doesn't seem too happy. So I got to figure that out. But it's for sale too, and then
It's a great
and then
selling point.
well, the price is going to go down a little bit because of that. And
Unless
then
you fix it.
yeah, I might. I don't know. I got to figure out what's going on with it. Let's see. Oh, and then last weekend I picked up a cool little bike, a 75 Yamaha RS 100, a little 2-stroke street bike. It's like if you took an XS 650 from the early 70s and then made it a 2-stroke, and it was only a single cylinder, and it was a lot
So
smaller.
it's nothing like
Yeah,
taking an
not the
XS
best
650.
comparison.
No, it's the same style of bike. Like
Well,
it's
all-
modeled after the XS 650. Like the tank, if you look at the graphics, the tank graphics are like the same as a like 73, 74 XS.
How about like an RD 350 and then made it a 1-cylinder?
No, because the tank is different. If I look at you'll see what I mean if you look at the pictures. It's more similar to an XS than it is to an RD. I guarantee you.
And I don't like that.
I beg to differ.
Well, look, it's my comparison. Okay, so if you don't like
it's
it,
comparison because
you can
it was,
describe it
was
however you
built
want.
in the same era.
No, that's
in the same manufacturer.
The tanks are the same color, therefore
no,
it's
not even the
modeled
same
after
color.
it.
The stripe is similar. It just
Look at any same two different
All right,
models
anyways,
in the same
all
manufacturer.
right.
They're all similar.
so. It's a cool bike.
Gotta
And
keep those
It is
style
really
lines.
cool. I'm not trying to say it's
We
not.
just rode it around. It was
I
pretty
s-
fun.
Yeah.
I especially like that it says on the oil tank on the side it says torque induction. I
Yeah,
think that's
I
cool.
saw that.
Which they had finally started using reed valves
Yeah.
on them, and then they called them torque induction motors. It was
That's
kind of
awesome.
cool. I think somebody said I was reading on a forum or something, and like that engine is basically identical to the RD motor. It's like half of an RD motor.
Which is why I just said
Yes. Okay. Engine wise, it's similar to the RD, but I was talking about how it looks. You totally screwed up my comparison. Anyways,
So what else is in the
I think
shop?
You did that.
I'm gonna post pictures, okay, of all of these bikes, and then we'll see what it's most similar to, and I will be correct, and you guys will both kiss my ass because
It's most similar to
I was-
any other Yamaha that was built in that
so
day.
it's really similar to like any other bike from 1971 to 1978.
it's really similar to the Suzuki I used to have.
It's really similar to a motorcycle because
It's got 2 wheels and
all right,
stuff.
anyways, it's a cool bike. It's a cool bike, and let's see what else. I've been what's it called? Airhead's about to roll out the door. Just have to put the airbox on, and that saga is finally complete.
Yeah.
So that's been an interesting project for quite a while. Yeah, so that's about it. Still working on my dreaded RMZ 250 dirt bike nightmare. Waiting on the kid to order the cases so I can put that thing back together, and I have no idea where that's at, so it just sits here collecting dust like it always does. Yeah, so anyways, that's it. My shop's pretty full right now. And I'll put up a picture of it. I just did some work on a customer who I've known for a while. I've done a bunch of work on this bike. He's got a CB 900F, like an 82 Super Sport. That looks,
I've seen those.
It's amazing.
Those
dude.
things are running into my life
It looks like new
all the time lately.
They're all over Craigslist right now.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of them on
The
Craigslist.
Super Sport
Yeah.
900. They're so cool.
Well, that and
so cool.
the dual overhead 750s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's basically the same
It's the
bike,
same,
I guess.
yeah.
But I just like the body work on the 900F. It just looks really badass.
Yeah, I don't like them.
They're cool bikes, and I just did a bunch of custom wiring stuff on it for them. There's a mod to put a relay in for the regulator so it charges a little hotter. I did that and did some custom stuff on his. He had a Dyna ignition put on it that had a hidden kill switch function that was some other shop had set it up and it didn't work. So I went through and fixed that. And anyways, just a bunch of random stuff. Put a new starter. Oh yeah, this was kind of cool. The starter clutches apparently wear out on those a lot. And so this guy, he had a replacement starter clutch for it that is the big gear and the clutch mechanism. And they take them off of a new R6. So this guy on a forum or something buys the starter clutch that's a similar size internally, same size as the shaft, and he buys them off the R6 and then cuts them and then welds them onto the gear from the CB.
That's cool.
And then so
That
you
is
have
cool.
the new internal, so the lockup mechanism really never wears out.
Yeah.
But you have the same gear diameter, and also it'll fit, I guess. It was
cool.
kind of cool. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah.
So I installed that for him too.
I wonder how much trial and error that took to figure out.
Yeah, I don't know how he came up with that, but it's a really nice mod. So anyways, yeah, that was fun. All right, so that's
How carbs
what's
work.
going on. Let's talk about carburetors. Brady put in quite a bit of work here drawing a really detailed diagram.
Yeah, it's better than yours. You printed out.
Well, mine was really good until Jared spilled water all over himself and then cleaned it up with my diagram and then sat on it.
I liked Brady's better.
Up until then, mine was a hell of a lot better than yours. But
Brady's looks original.
it's a blatant copy of my...
It's not.
All right, anyways.
It's totally different.
All right, Brady,
this has a box and
kick us off here.
All right, so as Evan mentioned in the intro, that we are doing a 2-part series on carburetors. This first one is going to be just your basic go-through on how a carburetor works, and it's kind of a prequel to the one that I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for. We've mentioned many times is how to tune a carburetor. So we figured we'd go through and kind of give you an idea of what you're actually going to be doing, and to the different things and why they make changes and how it works. So one thing we've mentioned before as well is once you understand and know how something works, then you can fix it and adjust it. So kicking us off, the purpose of carburetors. As many may know, we're just going to go through it. Purpose of carburetors is just to mix the air and fuel together and create a mixture to send to the combustion chamber of the motor where it will ignite. And the magic number for air to fuel ratio is 14.7 parts air to 1 part fuel.
Where did you find that out?
It's common knowledge, man.
I didn't know that. What?
Yeah, that's just
Can you explain this?
Oh, that's the magic number. With some fireworks and stars around it. Yeah, it's magic.
All right.
I didn't have room to write a.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
So essentially, that's your reference as far as your perfect number. As far as say that's your control. So most. Or that's the most efficient number, I should say. So, say on fuel-injected vehicles, motorcycles, that's the number that they are trying to reach. That's what the job of the O2 sensor is, to read the amount of oxygen in the exhaust, and then that goes back to the computer and says, "All right, we need to fatten it up here. We need to throw in some more fuel or allow more air in." Actually, it adjusts the fuel, not the air. Now this number can be changed for many reasons. If anything, like on say like a drag bike or cars or a race bike, whatever, you can gain a little bit more horsepower and cooler temperatures by richening this. So a richer number ratio would be, say, like 13.2 to 1. That would be 13.2 air to 1 part fuel. So we're not really going to get into that. We might touch on that, or we probably will touch on that when we're doing carb tuning. But just to let you guys know, that's the number that an efficient mixture level.
Yeah. So when you need to dial that in, you just plug your USB cable into the carburetor and type in 13.9.
No, 14.7.
Oh, sorry.
All right.
Weren't you listening, Evan?
Get it? Like you could program your...
I didn't get it at all. I was just going with it for you. It was a sympathy.
That was not
sympathy follow.
That was not as funny as I thought it was going to be. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
All right. So with that number, I mean, well, like I said, we'll be going into that in the next part. The next segment of this series. With that, we're going to go through the components that are in carburetors and kind of give you an idea of what their job is.
I guess we had kind of already talked about the two styles, like the mechanical carb and the CV carb. So
we were going to touch on that too.
Yeah,
so
didn't we talked about that right at one point?
Yeah, and carb cleaning.
Cleaning, that's what it was.
So a lot of this we may have gone through, but we're just we might have just touched on what they are.
Now we're going to tell you
necessarily
what it
they
does.
do.
Yeah.
So getting into this, we'll touch on the float.
We'll touch.
God, these
Okay.
really, we're not funny tonight at all.
No, or I don't
At
think
least
we
it's
ever
not
are.
just me. That's as stupid as what I said.
All right, so the float and the float needle. So these two work hand in hand together. We'll follow the fuel trail. So the fuel passes through from the petcock into the carburetor, and that runs into the float needle. And the float needle,
Well, into the float bowl.
into the float bowl. And this is where it's kind of like your hatcher is, not hatcher.
Your what?
Your satchel. It's where you store shit.
What is a hatcher?
I don't know. I
It's
slipped up.
It's a
man.
guy who carries a
I
hatchet.
guess.
I slipped up.
Okay, so the gas goes into your fuel satchel at the bottom of the car.
I wasn't gonna say sack.
It's like a ball sack, like a testicle.
Yes, it's like
where your semen
it's
is.
It's a ball sack for gas.
No, not at all.
It's where your testicles are
This
for
is
motorcycles.
horrible. Okay.
All right. I'm going to accidentally hit delete on this. You guys are taking this not seriously, man. I need some
Yes.
seriousness.
Goes into your hatcher. That's as stupid as soldiering.
All right, we're burning time, guys.
Let's go.
All right, so the fuel will enter into the float bowl, and that's going to pretty much just have a storage. It's your storage area for fuel for all of these components to pull from.
And the float bowl, we've described this before, but the float bowl is basically the cover, the bowl on the bottom of the carburetor that's attached with usually 4 screws. And it's your reserve, well, not reserve, but it's where the fuel is stored, so it can be pulled directly into the carburetor passages, so they can be mixed with air. Let's see. So let's talk about the float first, because that's
I've been trying to do that for.
Well, you were saying things like hatcher and satchel and all these other things that were not
And you were running
totally
with
on
it.
topic. I know, but now
So-
I'm making progress.
So with the fuel or the float and the float needle, the gas comes down from the tank and then fills up in the float bowls. And what the purpose of the float is to meter the level of fuel in the bowls. You set the floats at a different at a certain height. You check your manual for that.
A lot of them are fixed too.
Yeah, what Brady said. And so the float is basically like a little piece of plastic, or they might be brass, and they're soldered together and they're hollow inside so that they float. And once gas gets to a certain level, the float raises,
Right.
and it
Which that's something like it took me a long time to realize that it was called a float because it actually floated like floats on the gas.
Yeah.
I didn't get that for a long time when I was first started like taking carburetors apart. It never really occurred to me that that's actually how it operated.
If you want to see a large-scale demonstration of it, go into your bathroom and pull the top off of the toilet and flush the toilet, and that's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the water level will sink down, and then
Once
it'll
it
start
rises.
to rise up, filling up more water into the bowl, and then that little balloon is floating up with the level of the water, and then closing that valve to stop the water or fuel going into the float bowl.
Well, then the float operates by it allows fuel into the carburetor when the float is low or the fuel level's low, and as it rises, it pushes up on a needle, and that little needle closes the fuel supply valve.
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. And the needle is it's tapered on one side where it seats, and then the other side it has like a little spring kind of thing to it. So
Not all the time, though.
Some do, some don't.
I feel like if we keep doing it at this pace, we're going to have a 2-hour show. I think they understand what a float is.
I was talking about the needle now.
Well, he had moved on to needle.
Yeah, I was
Well,
trying.
we went through the needle on carb cleaning.
All right, refresher.
Well, and it is important where the tab on the float is set because
we'll
that's
carry
where
that on to actually tuning, because that is part of tuning.
Well, but you have to know why it.
We're
why
explaining
it's
what it
adjustable
does.
too, because it changes
We're
where
explaining,
the valve turns on and off.
We're explaining its purpose, not how to adjust it. That would go into adjustment category. Sorry, guys. Please.
Sorry
please
to take
bear
away
with
from the
us.
Brady Show.
I'm trying to keep us on a time schedule here.
Back to Brady.
I'm
I'm
trying
just
to
kidding.
keep us on a time schedule.
All right, the floor is yours.
No, fuck you guys.
We'll just be quiet. You going?
Take the fucking pilot screw on.
I just went for it.
Go for it.
Go. You have clearance. Go.
All right.
Until he changes his mind. Hurry up.
So the pilot jet, or are we talking? Yeah. So the pilot jet is
No. The pilot.
Pilot air. The air mixture screw.
okay.
Yeah.
So there's an air mixture screw on some carbs. It's on the airbox side of the carburetor. Other carbs, it's on the engine side of the carburetor. And this screw basically monitors your air fuel mixture on each side of the carburetor. It lets so you set it to a certain.
Well, it lets you dial in the air fuel mixture from 0 to quarter throttle, which is when the pilot jet is in play.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah, essentially, it's your fine tuning for the
your
pilot
mix.
system. So the pilot system includes the pilot jet and your air fuel mixture screw, your pilot screw. They're called a few different things.
Some cars have the pilot. What did we look it up on that other diagram? It's called the pilot air jet. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
of.
we weren't getting into that. Remember?
Well, if it has one, that's tied into that system. That's
yeah,
what's
that's
metering
on.
air
That's
through
more
the
on
pilot system.
newer carbureted systems.
But I don't think any of probably the bikes that most of our listeners are going to mess with have those.
That's why we didn't.
But it's good to know. What if they pulled it out and they didn't know what it was? Now they know. So, anyways, that's there's your mixture screw, and your pilot jet is what allows fuel from the float bowl to flow through the pilot system for your low throttle fuel and air mix.
Yeah, essentially from naught to about quarter throttle. And that air fuel mixture screw, it's like Jared was explaining, if it's on the motor side of the carburetor, that adjusts your fuel. So if you back that in screw that in all the way, you're essentially cutting off most of the fuel from delivering into the system. And if you back that out, you're opening up the passage to allow more fuel in. And that's based off of the pilot. So,
because if you pulled that screw out and looked at it, it's tapered on the end to a point. So screwing it in, forces basically a needle tip into a cavity with the same taper, and it will then close it off. You back it out, that opens up more room around the tip of the needle and allows
More fuel.
to flow through.
And if it's on the airbox side of the carburetor, it's doing the opposite. When you screw it in, it's letting in more air. And then when you screw it out, it's when it's letting in less air. Backwards.
No,
backwards.
Because it's
backwards,
still
yeah.
tapered to a point.
Yeah.
So if it goes out, it's letting more air through.
Yeah.
It's just depending on which side of the carb it's on. It's either metering air
Yeah.
or fuel.
So that's important to know to when you are tuning. So we'll jump into that more on.
That is one of your
the
major
next
adjustments.
So next we'll jump into the needle and needle jet. The needle is the long pointy thing.
It looks like a needle.
Looks like a needle that is through the slide of the carb. The slide is that little guy you can push up and down. The job for this, it mainly tackles at about 8 throttle to but the needle and needle jet system encompass this to about 8 throttle to a little over half throttle. And what that is doing is as the slide raises, it's allowing fuel to come into allow fuel to come out from the
bowl,
the float, or the float bowl.
From the float bowl. But you're not using, basically the needle is not far enough out of the main jet yet to be pulling, the larger amount of fuel through the main jet. So you're in like an intermediate area where the fuel is metered through the needle jet. And it works, it's kind of the same way that the main jet operates. It's just in a different range of throttle position and different position that the needle is in.
Oh yeah, because once the needle is raised all the way, then it can allow all the fuel
access to the main jet.
Yeah, that the
which
main
is
jet can pass
for
through.
your largest amount of fuel from. So where does the main come on? What do you have on here? 3/4 throttle to full throttle is when the main jet's in play. And so if you think about it, like the needle is tapered, like we were talking about before. So as it begins to come up higher and the point is further away from the jet, it allows more fuel to flow up and through it.
Yeah, and so and on the different carb types or styles, there's the constant velocity or CV carbs and the mechanical slides, and those are the ones that the slides move up manually as you're rolling the throttle.
And on a mechanical slide, the slide and the needle are all attached together, and they are directly attached to the cable that pulls them. Mm-hmm. And then on the CV or the vacuum carburetor, the needle is still attached to a slide, but that is attached to a diaphragm, which
the slide races by air intake.
Right. Which changes pressure and allows the slide to rise. So on those, the slide is not directly controlled by the throttle cable or by the throttle itself.
Yeah, and on CV-style carbs, they will have a throttle valve. And this throttle valve is in the back of the carburetor on the motor side. And what this does is it controls the amount of vacuum. As you open up, of course, it's going to allow more air and mixture in, but what that's doing is increasing the vacuum that's allowing all of these systems to work. On mechanicals, it's as you're raising the slides, it's doing the same thing. It's allowing a larger passage for that increases the vacuum for all of these systems to work at greater speed or greater volume to pull more air, pull more fixture into the cylinder heads. And this whole area where it's all happening, the main party room, is the Venturi.
Party room.
And so it's the Venturi it's the name of the passage where that starts from the inlet where you mount to the air filter or air intake on. To where you mount the heads onto the intake manifold or intake boots, and so that just the whole party room. It's called the Venturi.
Let's
party over here.
Let's talk about choke and enrichener.
That's right.
Because I just learned the difference, and I kind of use those interchangeably, but they mean two different things.
Yeah. Well,
which I knew, but I didn't really realize. I've always just kind of called everything a choke, but there is.
They basically do the same thing, just in different ways.
So, but a choke is generally means like the butterfly choke on the front that literally chokes off the throat of the carburetor.
Yeah, so it blocks off air to allow more fuel to be in the mixture,
and it enriches the mixture by cutting out air.
But I think most carbs, like let's use like the CBs for instance, like they don't use a butterfly choke like that, right? Don't they use an enrichment?
Well, there's lots of different CB models that use different types of carburetors, but it does vary from carburetor to carburetor whether or not they wanted to use this system. There's like the plunger type that's actually an enricher that when you pull the cable or pull the arm to engage the choke, One will be opening and closing a butterfly valve in the front of the Venturi on the air intake side. Like we said, just cutting off more air from coming in and enriching the mixture. And the other style is the plunger, which opens up a valve that allows more fuel to enter into the party room.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say the party room.
And so those are your two different types. The butterfly valve type are pretty straightforward. There's usually some adjustment on that so they can all be synced the same, so they open the same distance or close the same amount, and so there's no fluctuation in vacuum pull. So it runs stable at idle or when the choke is on. And plunger use, it's pretty straightforward. There's no real adjustment for that. And one thing that I forgot to write down was the accelerator pump. Not all carburetors have accelerator pumps, but the main purpose for these is there's a few different styles, but or I guess ways that it is injected, I guess, into the Venturi is, but they all do the same thing. What they do is they squirt a little bit of fuel into the system, into the mixture, as you
Open the throttle.
It's essentially when you're pulling on or you're twisting the throttle, it's engaging a little pump that just squirts up some fuel. And what that does is it helps with the transfer, and so it rolls on. So like say if you're doing a large or like a fast throttle position on, it's not with that increase in that quick increase of volume and air intake flooding in. It allows a little bit more fuel in the system to accommodate for that transfer of position. So there's not a flat spot in it.
They're usually operated by like some sort of mechanism off of the throttle, like a the throttle wheel. Yeah, but they're usually pushed. At least I'm thinking on like dirt bike carbs, like almost all dirt bike carbs. Almost all modern dirt bikes use the Kian, the FCR carb that it's a CV carb, but it's got a really big accelerator pump. They all do, and they have like a little like a metal like a tube basically that is actuated by the like the main throttle mechanism that the cable attaches to. So it actually like pushes a bar down that then pushes on the diaphragm. There's a little rubber diaphragm in the pump.
Yeah,
and that just kind of creates a pulse and shoves fuel up through a passage, and then it's got a little nozzle kind of thing right on the bottom of the carb. Yeah, and you can see it. Like when you get on the throttle, you can watch the whole thing actuate, and then it just blasts fuel down the throat of the carb. And I assume they work that way on the other. I've never really run into.
That's how it is on like my Harley too.
Yeah, that's essentially that's how all the systems I've seen work. They aren't connected directly to the throttle cable. It's on the linkage.
But it's actuated
right.
through
they
the
have
linkage.
a linkage, so they kick in at a certain point. But it's very close to like it's definitely between 0 and quarter throttle, probably less than quarter.
And I mean, a accelerator pump is essentially just another enricher for the most part. It's enriching the mix.
But they make a difference on a really sharp throttle increase where it might take like split seconds, but it takes a little bit of time for that to equalize. And if you have a direct linkage that jams fuel down the throat of the carb, you get a lot better throttle response.
Jamming fuel down the throat.
And it makes a difference. I've had carbs on dirt bikes that didn't have them and then replaced them with like Edelbrock made a carburetor for a long time that was a common replacement on dirt bikes. And that makes a huge difference to have an accelerator pump on those. But I don't know. I can't think of a street bike that I've seen one on. I'm sure there's plenty. I just can't think of running into one.
Yeah, I've run into most bikes. Well, not most. Yeah, I think
are they on like the carbs on the CBs, like 70s carbs? Did they use them?
No. Well, on like 80s, the dual overhead cam 750s.
I'm trying to think on do the single overhead 750s have them? No. So yeah, those are going to be more of your later type carburetors. But you run into them a lot. They started that and probably well before this, but I guess more commonly in late 70s, early 80s. Yeah. So thanks for bearing with us on that one. That was hands down probably one of the worst ones we've ever done.
Well, I think it was probably funny, but it may not have been the most informative.
Yeah, maybe not.
I thought it was entertaining.
Yeah. No, it was.
I laughed a couple times.
It was fun.
So anyways, yeah, hopefully this helps you understand the different parts of a carburetor.
Yeah, and so next week we'll be getting into how to tune carburetors. We kind of needed to, not necessarily needed for most, I'm sure, for a lot of people, but just kind of
some
entry knowledge. And so when we start talking about it, you'll know what we're talking about. Hopefully, and didn't just confuse you on this one. Yeah, stick with us for next week if you are waiting to figure out how to do some carb tuning, or just be interested to learn how those things are adjusted.
Yeah. Well, let me read a couple comments we have on our website. Matt Jameson, this is a comment on the last episode about the One Moto show. He said, "Great podcast, guys. My brother went to the show this year and had a blast. Maybe next year for me." I wanted to give him a plug, though. He had kind of a cool website. His email was at bestmotorcyclehelmet.net, and I looked it up. It's kind of cool. It's like a website I'm assuming he runs or works for or something, and they review motorcycle helmets. It's actually
cool.
Kind of cool. Yeah, I spent a while looking at it.
That's rad.
I just noticed it from his email, and it was actually kind of interesting. So
yeah, definitely. If you can make it to the show, I had a great time.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
I want to go next year. That looked awesome. I'm kind of bummed I didn't go to that. And then we had an email from Bobby Black, who I think is
Woboito.
Do you know him?
Yeah, we know this guy.
Okay, he's commented on something else, I thought.
Yeah, I've mentioned those carb nightmares I was working on.
Yeah, that CV750, the dual cam that was in our shop for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's his bike.
I thought that name sounded familiar.
I try not to think about those.
He said, this was a comment on the last episode, One Moto show. He said, "Listen to the show today. Sad I missed you guys at the show, but maybe I'll come by and visit when I get home
I was
for the
looking
summer."
out for you,
Yeah,
bud.
we didn't see him, man.
Does
We
he
were
live
looking
up
for
there
you
or something?
Yeah, well, he's
in
from
Washington.
He lives in Washington, and then he moved. He's in the Navy or the Army. He's in the military, and so they moved down to San Diego, and that's how we met him through Seaweed. And then they actually just moved back up to Washington, so they were going to drive down, and I didn't see him. We were there all 3 days.
Yeah, now you know all about Mr. Bobby Black.
Yeah, sorry, dude.
And then he sent some links. Did you guys look at these? I think I sent them to you. There's some links about both of you guys have bikes that people posted on Reddit in the motorcycle section.
Yeah, I saw mine.
And they turned into some I got into a couple arguments with...
You did?
Especially with this one guy.
Yeah, that's what all of them are.
It got really ridiculous because we got into... He kept saying that I think he was talking about your bike, the one that you just had at the show. And he was saying something about... I mean, he was basically
talking about Brady's bike.
He was like a keyboard badass. And he's going on about how the bike would... it was all done for looks, and it would be miserable to ride, and you're just building these douchey cafe bikes. And then I tore him apart, and I'm like, where do you get off saying any of this? And where did you ever see Brady call it a cafe bike?
Yeah.
There's not anything wrong with calling it that, but the guy who built it never labeled it that way, and you're judging the shit out of him because of that, and you don't know anything about it.
Well, the thing is
it was just ridiculous. It was so stupid.
I don't pay any attention to any of that stuff. I mean, it's in response to his comment, if the client, or if I was building a bike to handle or let's just stick to handling, I would build a completely different bike. But it's all tailored to what the client's going to be using the bike for. If I would have built out this badass performing bike, it never would have been used to perform. He wants something he can just cruise around the city and have some fun. And so the low stance, like he was probably bickering about or mentioning.
Trying to find it. That's exactly
then-
what Bobby said. He commented on it and said, look, he built this for a guy who wanted it that way.
And that's what the
I mean,
people,
it's-
like,
What
they
are
don't
you
recognize.
complaining
They
about?
don't realize
Each
that.
build is purpose built for what the client's going to be using it for and desired to.
Yeah, we're not riding these bikes. We're not building them for ourselves.
Yeah, I don't get involved in any of that stuff. It just doesn't help anyone out.
Yeah, I saw mine posted on Reddit too, and I read the comments, and I was just like, okay, like whatever, like, it's like, no, I didn't lower the bike, but you're telling me that it's lowered, and I actually raised the bike higher, and yeah, the tires are kind of knobby, but that's what the customer wanted, and it's like,
Yeah, there's no to me. There's no reason to defend it.
Let's see. He said, where's the practicality in this bike? Not a rhetorical question. Seat is not big enough for two people. No pillion pegs. It's not street legal. And nubby tires, as if anyone
my bike.
would take this bike. Oh, this is yours.
Yeah.
As if anyone would take this bike off-roading. It's too clean to mess up. Suspension is probably too rigid. Not enough ground clearance with exhaust. Maybe for track racing, but then why even add a headlight and not racing tires? I'm just not seeing it, and I love old Hondas. It's a gorgeous bike, but it seems that it's a work of art and not meant for riding. And
Okay,
then,
well, I don't understand what the guy's problem is.
and then it turned into an argument.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the prime reason why I don't even look at comments or anything.
it's stock exhaust. Like the 4-in-1, the header is stock.
Well,
No, it's
here's
a Mac
exactly what
41.
I said to him. I said, all of everything you said makes perfect sense on paper. Once you ride a bike like this, you'll quickly understand why it's done this way. Because, those are all like valid points, but as soon as you
I
ride
don't know. He
it...
was kind of contradicting himself the entire time.
Well, he's a D-bag, but I'm just saying, like, off-road tires, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not like... those things are not ridiculous to bring up, but the whole point is go ride that down the street and see if you don't have a shit-eating grin on your face by the time you get back.
Yeah.
Like, it's just ridiculous to argue about stuff like that, but it was that same guy that I got into a really good argument about. Because he had... Wait, I got to read one more of these. It was really funny. Oh, that's right. So he was commenting about how it was a cafe racer and how, therefore, it's not cool because cafe racers aren't cool anymore or something. So then he had said, sarcastically, remind me again what a cafe racer style bike is, while linking to pictures of his... he has like a
With Clubman
CV350
bars.
with Clubmans on it. So, and then he had a picture of this other, or I think that's the same one that he started taking apart. It's got like he put scrambler pipes on it or something, and then he says, "I'm turning it into a track bike. But it's going to be my daily. The other one's my daily rider." Or something. I don't know. Anyways, he says this bike is a fashion statement and has no correlation to a true cafe racer. At the very least, they could have beefed up the carbs from stock, added rear sets, and some sporty tires. And and then he got a bunch of other people pissed off.
Yeah,
sorry I didn't check out your post history. Nice job on being a dick on the internet, though. I bet that felt good. Anyways, it turned into a pretty interesting argument.
That's just silly.
It was silly.
Yeah.
That's a good word for it. But I for one had a great time arguing with him. I really enjoyed it.
So,
all right.
Any other
anyways.
comments?
So I think that's it. I don't have any other emails. But yeah. So thanks for listening. Hope you like this episode. Part of our Carburetor series, and we'll be back next week and talk about carb tuning.
Later, guys.